Before we start this video, a large thank you to TV Hambika and Thomas. Thank you very much for the support, gentlemen. I hope you enjoy the video. And as always, a massive thank you to Halo Burner for their continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. It is sincerely and greatly appreciated, my friend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, and today we are going to make it so we have focus points, and we can cast spells, deduct those, save the focus points, and actually give our spell UI and icon. So, order resources under the Character Network Manager. Let's add one for current focus points and our max focus points. So we're just going to do this the same way we set up our stamina and our health, linking it to a stat. Health has vitality, stamina has endurance. So we're going to give this one, I believe in Elden Ring it's called Mind. If you want to pause the video right now and go ahead and try to implement this whole system, I encourage you to do so. So right now, pause the video, implement how we calculate this, how we save it, and how it's going to deduct when you cast a spell. Go ahead and do that right now. Okay, let's go to the Player UI Manager, and let's actually go over now and duplicate one of our bars here. I'm just going to duplicate stamina, and I'm going to call this focus point bar. Also, if you wanted to save one of these as a prefab, and basically use the same prefab for all, so if you make changes in one, you can do that as well. Might be a good idea. I'm not going to do it because we've already got all three done now, and they're not going to change. So I am going to set the focus point bar color to a blue. Not going to spend too long on this, just want to get it set up for you guys. That looks good to me. Next I'm going to go to the HUD manager here, and I'm going to go inside and see what we're doing. So I'm just going to duplicate everything we already have set up for one of the bars. Let's go and make a new variable for UI stat bar, call it focus point bar or focus points bar, whichever you prefer. I'm going to duplicate, we have set new, refresh HUD too. Let's go ahead and disable and enable this game object. And that will refresh the bar's size if we have that ticked, so it scales with your stat. Right here now, let's go and duplicate set new stamina value and set max stamina value. And what I'm going to do is change this from set stamina to set focus points, of course. Now, old value and new value are good as they are. Don't need to change that. It's not really hyper specific. Max stamina needs to be changed to max focus points, and stamina bar needs to be changed to focus point or focus points bar, whatever you have called it. And then we can actually look for where we called these and just kind of follow the trail backwards and just kind of start doing things as need be. First, I'm going to drag in the variable though for the focus points bar so it doesn't give us an error. And now I'm going to go to the Public Network Manager, and we have set new max health and stamina values. Copy either of those, and just again, we're going to change old vitality to, I believe it says mind. We don't have that variable made yet though, we'll make that in a second. So old mind and new mind, and then set new max health will become set new max focus points. And wherever you see max health, just replace it with max focus points. And new vitality becomes new mind, and current health becomes current focus points dot value. So it's going to try to take my time because it's very easy to miss one of these two, because it will still actually work if you use one of the old calculate functions. It'll just give you the incorrect formula. If, like, for example, if your game has a formula for calculating health and it's different than your focus points, and you accidentally call the health formula, you might not notice it for a bit. Alright, looks good. Current focus points is equal to max focus points dot value. And this is still giving me an error because I have not changed the name yet. Before I do that though, I'm going to scroll back up here. That is on Character Network Manager. We're going to have to change that or add that value. So I will change this right now before we jump over there. Set new max focus points. So you could just have stats if you wanted to on your Player Network Manager, but I like putting them on the Character Network Manager because it's good to give your AI stats too for certain reasons. So on network spawn here, let's call Player Network Manager. This is if you are the owner only. And then we're going to say dot, we don't have mine yet, so let's go quickly make that. Jump to the Character Network Manager, and right under our stats header, I'm going to put mine under endurance. Just copy and paste it, and I'm going to call this mind. Now jumping back over to our Player Manager on network spawn, we're going to say Player Network Manager dot mind dot on value changed plus equals Player Network Manager dot set new max focus points value. And then we need to also unsubscribe from this by calling it on network despawn. I believe we have another function we have to call right below that. Yes, we do. It's updating the actual UI. So let's put minus instead of plus equals. And whoops, I accidentally put that in the wrong place. It should be below the one right above this because this is for our UI and updating the UI. So let's go now and add that on value change for the UI as well. So we're going to say Player Network Manager current focus points dot on value change plus equals Player UI Manager dot instance player UI HUD manager set new focus points value. Let's go ahead to and unsubscribe from that by pasting it below. That's giving us an error because it's going to be a float. We don't want a float. Let's change that to an integer because focus points are always going to be a whole value. Unless in your game they're not, in which case you can change that as you see fit. So let's go back over now and copy this, drag it right down to the bottom and unsubscribe from this event. The same way we did with everything else as before. So I'm going to put mine right below set new standard value here, minus equals, looks good. Let's save that. Now, if I go back into the project, let's go look up the spell item. Let's go to that. Let's actually give it a cost now, both a stamina cost and a focus points cost. So I'm realizing now too that spell modifier or spell slots used rather, that can also be a cost. So I'm just going to move that down here. The only thing that's a modifier really is the full charge effect multiplier. So spell slots used and then public int stamina cost. I'm going to say defaultly 25. And public int focus points cost, again, defaultly 25. I'm not really putting any thought into this right now. This is something you'll have to tune depending on how you want your game to feel. You want certain spells that cost more, cost less, etc., etc. So under successfully cast spell, make sure you're calling this on base.successfully cast spell on every spell you create afterwards, because what we're going to do is actually run our costs here. We're going to say if you are the owner, player network manager.current focus points value minus equals focus points cost, and likewise we can do the same thing with stamina. Now you may want to make it so your focus points never go below 0. You can do an on focus points changed. If focus points is less than 0, focus points equals 0. Our stamina does go below 0 because that's what Elden Ring does. And then for successfully fully charge your spell cast, we can just do the same thing but multiply it by the spell charge effect modifier, which I will comment out so we can actually use it. So this basically just double the cost for fully charging it. You don't have to do this. You can make this different for every spell also. Or you can even make another modifier, like one can be for the damage of the spell, one can be for the cost of the spell when you fully charge it. Whatever you want to do, I'm just going to use this because it's very straightforward and simple. I'm going to do a math f.roundInt for the focus points, just to make sure it's a whole number. And we are good to go. Going to save that now. Going to change max stamina to max focus points over here in the player UI HUD manager, just a local variable name, not too important, but still want to do it. Let's find where we reference this. So we're calling it one time here. Oh, also need to calculate focus points instead of health. This is under the player network manager set new max focus points. Calculate focus points based on mind level. That doesn't exist yet. I believe that's on the character stats manager. But let's just go see to be sure. Right click, go to definition. Yes, it is. I'm going to open that up now. Character stats manager. I'm going to create that function. Calculate focus points based on mind level. Integer, pass a mind level. And again, I'm not going to think about the formula right now. I'm just going to copy one we already have. It's not too important. If you want to write your own formula, that is definitely what you should do. I use a very specific one in Nephilim, so you can make it simple or make it complex if you want. This is just how it's going to be calculated for your total focus points amount. So focus points is equal to mind times 10 is all I'm going to say. We're just going to literally copy the stamina. And then we're going to round it just in case if you had some kind of weird numbers, it would always round for you. And then we're going to go over to the character save data. And let's add a stat. We have Vitality Endurance. Let's add one for Mind. All right, cool. Now let's add resources, current focus points. So public int, current FP. I'm just going to start calling it FP from now on. Let's save that. Go to Player Manager. What we want to do now is go to the save game data to current character data. Current character data dot mind is equal to player network manager dot mind dot value, and then we can do the same thing with our FP. Current character data dot current FP is equal to player network manager dot current FP dot value. Cool. Right below here, let's actually update the stats when we load the game. So I can get rid of this comment because this doesn't need to be there. We can say player network manager dot max FP dot value is equal to player stats manager calculate FP based on mind level, and we pass our player network manager dot mind dot value. Okay, cool. So this has to go after we load mind. That's very important. So right above that, we're going to actually pass our mind stat. Then we're going to say player network manager dot current FP dot value is equal to current character data dot current FP. We can actually delete this player UI updating set max stamina value. I'm assuming that was there previously for a reason. I think it's when we never saving system set up all that properly, but this actually updates on its own now, so we can actually just toast this. So we can delete that, save that. Now, right above, what we're going to do is, you can see here, like max stamina is actually updating the UI for us, by the way, which is why we deleted that. Because we update the max stamina, the UI updates. So we're going to say player network manager.mind.value is equal to current character data.mind, just right above here. And we can save that, and that should be good to go. Now, over here on the player stats manager, on start, you can see here when we make the character creation screen, this will be different. But for now, we do need to set our base value. So we're going to say calculate focus points based on mind level. And then we pass the player.network.manager.mind.value. Important that's on start. And we're just going to call it here for now until we have the character creation screen, in which case it'll be called there when you make a new character. And then on a new game, we're going to set the base mind level to, I was going to say 10. And again, this will be different when we set up the character creation screen because you'll set these values based on the class that you select. Save that. Cool. I'm going to go into the game now and delete my characters. And then I'm going to make a new character. I'm going to go into the game. And what I'm going to do is actually give my character a charm in my right hand and set the spell to Fireball. So over here in Assets on Charm. Now, if I were to go and save this, you see I can cast the spell. That's all well and good, but we don't have an icon. So let's go to the spell item as well. And under Can I Cast Spell, let's actually just set up the checks for focus points and stamina. And then we'll get into actually dropping in an icon to actually show up in our UI. So if player network manager.current focus points .value is less than equal to focus points cost, return false. Likewise for the stamina, unless you want the stamina to be fired anyway, because Elden Ring lets you use it at any stamina level, it just puts you in the negatives. So whatever you prefer there. If you want to do it like Elden, don't check for stamina, check to see if your stamina is above 0. Okay, so let's go see here. Over on the character save data, let's make a public int for a current spell. Now, this is going to change a little bit when we do our multiple spells. It's going to be kind of similar to how we set up the weapons, but don't worry about it for now because one thing at a time. Right now we just have the one spell, but I'll make a comment. This will change a little bit when we add multiple spell slots. It'll be somewhat similar to how weapons are saved. But for now, let's go down into the save and load. We're going to say current character save data dot current spell is equal to, now you can do this two ways. You can do player inventory manager dot current spell dot item ID. This is valid. If you do that though, you got to check to make sure your current spell is not null. Like I said, still acceptable. And this is the way I'm probably going to do it. Or you can do it with player network manager dot current spell ID dot value. That's also valid. So you can save that for now. We'll keep it like that. And now let's go right down to loading the spell. I'm going to copy one of our load weapons here. I'm just going to modify it a little bit to suit the spell. So instead of getting weapon by an ID, we're going to get a spell by an ID. And instead of checking the left weapon 03 in this case, we're going to check the current spell. And again, a weapon item variable becomes a spell item variable. And left weapon 03 becomes current spell. And then we're instantiating get spell by ID. And we're checking our current character data dot current spell. And then we're going to say player inventory manager. Instead of saying that, we're going to say player network manager dot current spell dot value becomes the current spell ID of this. And then that will automatically set the spell for us. So you don't even really need to instantiate it here if you don't want to. We're just looking to see if that is a valid spell, if it does exist. And if it does, we're going to go ahead and pass that ID, which will then update our spell because of our onValueChange function. All right, cool. So right below that, we're just going to change, again, the current spell ID to -1. Why -1? Well, it's not a valid ID to fetch an item from the database. It'll always return null, which will make your spell return null. So I'll just make a comment. -1 sets the spell to null. I always use -1 because my lists are all integers, and -1 is never a valid ID, which will always return it to null. You don't need to do this. You can do it some other way if you want, but I like this. It's simple and straightforward to me. All right, I am going to save this now, check everything over. Now, loading other players is already handled because you can see here we call on spell ID change, so it's going to sort that out for us. All good to go. Let's save that. Now let's go to our player UID HUD manager and copy one of the set right or left weapon quick slot icons. Change it to set spell item quick slot icon. I'm going to delete all these comments here of the old method we previously used just to when I gave multiple methods out. I'm going to change weapon item to spell item. You guys know how this goes by now. Change the weapon keyword to spell. I'm going to search for get weapon. Instead of getting weapon, it will be get spell. And then we're going to change weapon ID to spell ID. And then right weapon quick slot icon becomes spell item quick slot icon, which doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and make that. Quick slots, copy the image variable, paste it. Going to change from right weapon to spell item. And then right below, I'm just going to quickly go through these variables here and change right weapon to spell item. Now, I won't make you watch me do all these, so I'll just do a couple real quick and then pause the video and come right back when they're all done. So again, spell item, spell item, spell item, spell item, and the last two right below. I'll be right back. There we go. All right, cool. Let's save that, and now I am going to find where we call set right spell. You can see here it's on right weapon change. Cool. Now I could copy this and paste it and change it to on spell item change, but I bet we actually have that function already, and I know we do. So if I just type this spell item or spell ID, scroll down, here it is. So let's just delete this and copy the logic inside of it that was used to change the right weapons item icon. So we don't need to take this because we already got the spell. We don't need to set a weapon because this isn't a weapon set, obviously. So what we're going to do is say if the spell does not equal null, we're going to set the spell in our inventory. But also, if you're the owner, we're going to set the spell icon. So I'm just going to copy this like so, paste that in here. Make sure you set right weapon quick slot icon becomes set current spell or spell item quick slot icon, and pass the ID. Cool, save that. Now, we do need to check to see if this is null, otherwise we get an error. So we're going to say if world item database.instance.get spell by ID, and we pass the item ID, then we know it's not null, then we can get our spell. Otherwise, it's just going to give us an error if there's no spell by that ID. So we're going to say new spell is equal to null by default. And if it exists in the world database, new spell is equal to instantiate a copy of that spell. And then down here, it's if new spell does not equal null, the logic continues as it would before. All right, cool. Save that. Let's go into the game here now. And I am just going to go over to my player. I'm going to insert a charm. And I'm going to insert a spell. Test spell, or fireball spell, sorry. And I'm going to cast that to verify that's there, or rather, sorry, save that, and then come back in and cast that. So let's save the game. Now, under here, your current spell ID should be updating, or it might update, but ours isn't updating because I didn't actually set the network ID value. So if you want to do that, go to your spell's ID and set that right here under current spell ID. It's -1, 14. That error doesn't seem to be related to anything we're doing. It seems to be a Unity thing. Let's go over and save the game again. Now that ID is not updating, but I know it is updating. But just in case, you can change this to the inventory. But I reloaded here off video and it did load in the spell. But just for the sake of it being easier to just to insert spells in your inventory and save it that way until we have the swapping out spells to the UI, I'm just going to make this fetch the ID from the inventory instead. And also make sure you do a null check for that because if it's not there, it's going to throw you an error. Let's go to the player UI, and I am going to go down into the spell quick slot and drag that in. Whoops, that's not the right thing. I have to drag in the item icon. And I'm just going to drag that right in there, and then I am going to save this as prefab and then go into the game. You can see, boom, there is my icon. It looks stretched and weird though. It has that same artifact as before. So I am actually just going to fix that in a moment. We're going to copy the image variable from one of our inventory slots where we fixed this before. And just right here on the equipment inventory slot, item icon, right click, copy component. Looks good. Now let's go back into the player UI prefab here, and I'm just going to paste component values. You can see there too. It should not be a raycast target. That will save on memory because we're not ever clicking it. I'm just going to highlight all of these icons here, actually all the item icons. Right click, paste component values like so. And now if we jump back in the game, it should look normal. So I'm just going to save that. But before we do that, over on your can I cast the spell, I'm just going to delete everything in the fireball can I cast a spell, and we're just going to always use the base can I cast a spell, because at least for me, all spells are the same right now. I don't need to make this different for individual spells. Now, if I go back into the game, you can see the icons are looking normal, and I can cast my spell, and then both the focus points bar and the stamina bar update and change accordingly. All right, guys, there you go. That feels a lot more complete. So in the next video, we're going to do one more thing with spells. We're going to make a menu so we can actually swap out our spells, just like our equipment UI. So you have a way to change them without having to go in the inspector onto the player, and kind of click them in that way. So it feels more like a game. And then I'm going to do some of the requests in the comments I've gotten from you guys, starting with the jumping attack. So as always, a special thank you to my patrons. It's because of each and every one of you who get to keep doing this. You have my sincerest gratitude. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. I will see you next week.